it changes and it evolves, and so did my show. So, I just want to say that to all your listeners because I need them to realize that they don't have to be married to something all the time, that as their business evolves, as their goals evolve, you can alter things for that purposes. And as you well know, Cheri, I've rebranded once already my radio show. I had one name and I rebranded to the Mommy to Mogul. So, and it actually was the greatest thing I did because it really reached my target market better.
You focused in on that niche.
Exactly.
Well, we're talking about developing your niche and everything that you're doing right there. For somebody that's just thinking about maybe starting a podcast or somebody that's just started recently, what is the one thing that you could narrow down and say is the most important thing for them to consider?
Yeah, the tips for the beginner, right?
Well, there are actually about 5 of them, if you allow me to share them, because I think those.
Yes,
go for it.
These are to me are the 5 essentials for beginners, and you have to start by researching your competitors, because who are competing for that same target market that you are trying to reach. You may be selling different things, but you can learn from them. Or it could be somebody who's actually selling the same thing you are, but maybe for a different niche market. You can learn from these people. And what you learn from them is you take the good things that they're doing, but make it your own and have it make you stand out from the rest.
Oh, great.
So that's a big one.
That is big.
And the next thing is, you want to test your equipment. Always test your recording equipment before you begin. No matter how well it's gone every single time, you want to test it, because the wrong microphone or a bad cord connection can be a disaster for a radio show. So you want to make sure that you test those things. That's a biggie for me. The third one is you want to prepare as if it were a face-to-face presentation. I've heard a lot of people say, I just roll out of bed and come in and have nothing planned. Well, no, to me, that's disrespectful to my listeners. I respect my listeners enough to have some sort of structure. It's a fluid conversation, because it is a conversation in my show as it is in yours, that you want it to have, be more engaging by being a conversation, but you still have to have a little bit of structure to know where you're going to. You can't just throw out topics from the top of your head and make it flow that way. You have to have some loose structure. So that's number 3. You got to know your audience. I mean, that right there is a killer. If you don't know your audience and if you don't listen to your audience, which is the 5th one, you're not going to be successful at all, because that's the key. That's who you are communicating with. If you can't reach, if you're not talking and telling them what they want to know, what they want to hear about, and teaching them what they want to hear about, if that's the focus of your show, then they're not going to listen. They're not going to listen. And they vote in a variety of different ways, so that they kind of tell you if you're on the right track. They can vote through the downloads of your podcast. They can vote through comments on social media or comments on your blog, where you may post your podcast. If you post your own podcast on your website, as I do, and they'll comment on it. Any and all of those things. That's how you get to know them.
Great tips there. I mean, those are golden nuggets for anyone that just, again, wants to try this. And I know that internet radio is, it's still in its infancy. You started, 4 years ago doing yours?
Yeah, a little bit over, about almost 5 now.
Oh my gosh! And now look at it. with the, I don't know, what I'm hearing about with cars coming out now, they're going to actually have Wi-Fi. Very few of them will even have radios. Yeah. You're going to have an opportunity to be listened to by an even greater audience as they're traveling. So the opportunity is definitely there for those that want to take this leap and try to do their own podcast. And those tips are so essential. And I'll make sure I do post those up on our So Social Radio Show webpage with your information, as well as on our So Social Radio Show Facebook page, so that they can take these tips and really, they have a basis now to start. So thank you, Martha, for sharing those.
Yeah, absolutely. For the absolute newbie, that somebody is just getting on and getting their voice put together, what is the one thing that they might want to consider either looking for or doing to really get in the niche?
Well, just like everything else, and it's very similar to social media, quite frankly. It's not any different because it's a marketing strategy. The first thing is you want to know what the focus of what the purpose of your show is. You want to know what you're trying to accomplish, and make sure the goal is a SMART goal. Make it simple, make it doable, and all of those things in the SMART goal. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you know what I'm talking about. And one of the key elements in this is you have to be realistic in your expectations. And if you could be one of the lucky ones that just hit the right point in what you're trying to do, and all of a sudden overnight you have thousands and thousands of listeners. But in reality, most people fall in the area of which they have to build their listenership. So you've got to build your tribe. And one of the ways to do that is, again, you have a goal. You have to be prepared. You have to respect your audience. You have to meet their needs. So, if you know your niche, who you're trying to reach, if you figured that out, then you need to go and ask a couple of people that you know and trust that are in that niche. Ask them what they would like to learn about. Get a feel for them. And again, researching your competitors is always a good idea as well for additional ideas. So you want to make sure you do all of those. Those are the key elements right there.
Those are awesome. Again, more great golden nuggets from you, Martha. Thank you for that. And, what I'm hearing is it is a piece of your marketing when you're doing a podcast. So you have to have that strategy, just as you would be developing a strategy for your social media, for a marketing campaign, for an event. You have to create or treat this as a piece of your marketing so that it is getting you the results you desire.
Absolutely. You got to be consistent, just like in social media. You have to know your message and make sure that the message is one that resonates with your audience. You have to tell them the when, the who, the where, and the time, all of those things. So you've got to be really clear. So, and then once... And be consistent in your schedule. If you're doing your own podcast, because some people opt to do that on their own, make sure that whatever you're doing and you're committing to, that you're consistent. Don't commit to doing it 3 times a week if you can't. If all you can do is once every 2 weeks or once a month, then commit to that. And if later on you want to increase it a little bit, that's good. But start off with what you can be consistent with, just like social media.
Exactly. And let our audience know how they can get in touch with you, Martha, so that they can continue the conversation with you.
Well, I would love for them to visit my website at marthaasanchez.com. And they can see my membership site there and they can get a lot more of these types of golden nuggets, as you said, for podcasting, social media, for really developing their business, because that's my strategy. That's the type of things that I work with people, helping them set their goals, tips for financial, keeping their finances in order if they're a startup, small entrepreneur, those types of things. So my membership site does all of that for them for just $10 a month. That's all it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well, you've mentioned your membership site. What is on the inside of your membership site that I really want to know about, so I can give you $10?
Well, I've got all of my podcasts that are the historical podcasts are there. I've got special forms and downloads that they can get, that they can use. I don't believe in cookie cutter things, but there are forms that they can work through and identify what will work for them. There'll be, questions that they answer for themselves. They can obviously get included in there is a 30-minute coaching session with me that they'll get. And like I said, resources, tips, all of those things are there on the website.
Awesome. And they can go to marthaasanchez.com. That site has all of her information, and there is on the top navigation a link to the membership site that you can actually go and gather more information and get enrolled in. So I love that. What a tremendous offer there for $10 a month ongoing and getting all that great information, plus getting to coach with you.
Oh, thank you. And by the way, the coaching is only for your listeners, because I don't offer that normally. So
so make sure they tell you so. Is there a place they can put So Social Radio Show in there, or will you just
They can send me a message that they just signed up and that they're with So Social, and all they need to do is go to my contact page and shoot me an email via my contact page and let me know that they just signed up and they'd like they're a So Social radio show listener, and they would like to schedule their 30-minute coaching session.
Oh, well, thank you very much for offering that to our listeners, Martha. We do appreciate that, and I know they will appreciate that as well. So definitely take Martha up on her offer there. Getting into more of the conversation on podcasting, you talked about, building your tribe and your list so that you start gathering the listeners on your podcast, because that's what we want. We want to have listeners because we're providing this great information. Is there a specific way that you use to reach that target market through your podcasting so you do gather more listeners?
Absolutely. I use a strategy that it works for me because I've identified where my listeners come from and where they hang out. So I actually do almost strictly use social media for gathering my tribe, quite honestly, Cheri. And it's been very, very successful. For example, for me, it is mothers and women entrepreneurs. So what the places I go to are, I go to Facebook, of course. I go to Twitter for the radio show, of course, because remember that podcast radio shows, they're fast forums. They're for people who want to do things fast, because they tend to download these podcasts and listen to them while they're walking their dog, while they're in the car, while they're, cooking, any of those things. So these are people that want fast stuff. So a lot of them are on Twitter as well. So it's Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, because a lot of Pinterest has a high volume of percentage of women that are users. So I'm on Pinterest. Of course, Google Plus. Google Plus is a must, because Google Plus is, who does it belong to? Google.
That's right. It's that search engine there, the biggest one ever.
Exactly. So it gives you a lot of traction.